My name's Dan Manning, and this is Succession Wars. I thought I would give you a quick playthrough of the first mission here, just so you can see how the whole thing works. You're going to have to forgive me with some of the camera angles. You wouldn't believe how I've got the camera up here set up, but bear with me and I'll show you how this works, and if it doesn't work out, we'll do it again. First of all, you have to set up the game, and there is a depot up here where you will leave your enemy mechs, and they are color-coded from green to yellow to red to purple. There are some objectives that you can gain. I'm actually in the middle of another campaign, so I'm just going to leave this little objective token here from my other campaign so I don't lose it. Well, I suppose I could put it back over here. But that is where you'll hold on to your objectives. Should you gain any of those, they are worth points toward the end of the campaign. The idea behind this is you will start out by reading the first scenario and going through that scenario, and when the scenario is finished, you have choices to make depending upon how you finish, win, lose, or draw, which will lead you to the entry book. And the entry book is basically a choose your own adventure sort of book. There's multiple paths. You will probably, if you were to play the entire set of scenarios, there's 21 scenarios in here, each taking between 30 and 45 minutes, depends on how fast you play. You'll probably not play all of them if you were to play the campaign through. Just because of a few branches, you will end up missing a few. But that's the joy of it. You can come back and you can play it again if you wanted to. Just to show you the third part of this is the rule book, but I pretty much have this memorized, so shouldn't have to go through there. There's one stack of cards that sits off to the side, and these cards have a little black dot on them. Those are scenario specific cards, and they just sit off unless they are called for, and in scenario 1 they are not called for. First thing that you need to do is shuffle up your enemies and lay them out in the depot getting ready to be shuffled out. You are piloting an Atlas, and this is my Atlas marker. He starts on round 1. You will shuffle up the Tides of War cards as well as the recruitment cards. You would choose a pilot. This is my pilot. That happens to be me, so that's the pilot I'm going to use. Their stats on here are their gunnery and then their piloting score. You'll use that, the piloting for your initiative, and then the gunnery comes into play when you are fighting. And then over on the sides, in the this entries book, sometimes you'll be asked to perform some tests. If you ever played Agents of Smersh, it's not terribly unlike that. Okay, here we go. In the first mission, it is a warrior in need. Just reading through this very quickly. You need to get moving towards the city, only possible evac zone. But after only a short distance, your comm crackles to life and you answer a distress call from another survivor on the moon's wasteland. You recognize the voice and listen as he tells you about being pinned down by a lance of lighter mechs. Unfortunately, his Locust is not only under-armored for this sort of conflict, but he's lost an actuator in one of his legs and is moving at a crawl. You let him know you're only a short distance away, and you're on your way to the rescue. If you can see this from up top, the setup is very graphical. It tells you this is just a beginner's. It used to be the tutorial, and now it's just the first scenario in the campaign. But the setup is very specific, very graphical. It tells you what to get out. First thing it says is to shuffle all the green enemies, which I have already done. These are all the green enemies. And place 4 of them face down. So there's 4 of them. The next thing it asks you to do is to shuffle the yellow enemies, which I've also done already, and to place 2 of those face down. And third, it says to shuffle all of these enemies together and to fill the battlefield. Now in this first one, it tells you how to place these down. Most of the time, there are rules for this in the rules book. The first one, I kind of lead you through it because it is more of a tutorial. And it tells you to place the front row face up. So they are shuffled, and I'm placing them face up. I've got a Wasp, a Griffin, some heavy infantry, which are also color-coded. So 2 greens. The 2 greens are your lighter mechs and your weaker units. And then the yellow unit, which is the Griffin that's up front, is a bit stronger. And then, whoops, I should not have flipped that. I saw what it was, but it doesn't matter. In the backside, this is a bit of a fog of war. The second row, you don't really know until it either is told to flip up, it switches with another mech, or it slides forward in terms of the battlefield. So you don't really know what's coming up, what's coming after you. What you do know, however, is you do know that in the front row on the left-hand side, this is the most dangerous place to be in because it receives the highest die, and generally speaking, the further you go down in the enemy's die range, the more deadly it gets. There are some exceptions because there are some mechs that like to be in the back row and bombard you from afar, and so they like the smaller numbers. But most of the time, this is the deadliest place to be, and then it simply goes in order from left to right. The objective in here reads, you win the scenario when you defeat all the enemies on the battlefield, or lose when the health dice are reduced to 0 and your mech is disabled. And then there's a win and a lose condition up here, which we will go through as we win or lose. You have a die for each of your mechs. You have a center torso die. It is sitting in the blue space, and so it gets the blue die. There are 2 yellow sides to your mech, and those will receive a yellow dice apiece. And then the black and red die is the initiative die. And you'll roll all of these every time you roll in a turn or a round. The clear dice that I have up here, these denote the health of my mech, and it's 3 and 1, and that's what it reads on the dice: 3 and 1, 5 and 5, and then 3. And when damage is allotted to my mech, unless it states otherwise, it goes from the outside in, and generally speaking from the strongest side to the weakest side. So the first side that should take damage would be the right side of my mech, as it has the most points of health on the outside. The enemies will also receive their health dice. There's a 2 for the Wasp. He's not the strongest guy in the world. There are a couple of 3s for the Griffin. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Try that one. A couple of 3s for the Griffin. And then the infantry, even though they're the heavy infantry, they just get 1 apiece. They're not the hardest people to take out. Backside does not get anything until they are flipped over. You roll a die for each of the enemies that are showing. There are 3 enemies that are showing, and so there will be a die rolled for each one of those. So let's just go through a round real quick. In the first round, there is no modifier to the first round. The grayed out rounds are just simply rounds that you play as is. One thing that I didn't do right away is you have resource cubes that can be used either to help yourself out, mitigate damage. Essentially, these are, think of it as in terms of experience, that at the end of a scenario can be cashed in for permanent experience, which is a yellow or / gold cube. I'm using gold because I upgraded my components a little bit. My friends who have other copies of this game have yellow cubes that are plastic, so oftentimes I call them yellow instead of gold. The other ones, however, are blue and green. You start out with a cube for each number that you have in your piloting and gunnery. My piloting is 2, so I will start out with 2 cubes in my resource pool, which is down over on the side here. And I have 1 in my gunnery, so I will start out with 1 cube there. Any single round, including the first round, I can spend any 2 colored cubes I can spend any 1 colored cube to take the top card off the Tides of War card deck, or I can spend 2 to draw 2 and then keep 1. And the advantage to spending 2, which is generally what you would see me do, the advantage to that is some of these cards, approximately 20% of the cards are negatives, and about 80% of them are small bonuses or things that will help you out. Very beneficial as you go through. Oftentimes you don't need it in the tutorial very much, but as you battle through, those cards become really pivotal on keeping your mech on the board and still fighting. So there's no modifier in the first one, so I would take all my dice, and I can tell you a dice tray is really helpful for this, because sometimes you'll end up throwing dice for every enemy that's on the board, plus I have 2 upgrade slots that are not filled in because I haven't purchased any upgrades yet, but you may have 5 dice for yourself, and then 6 including the initiative die, and then 6 dice for the enemy, rolling 12 dice, and sometimes even a 13th die when the red one comes into play, because there are red upgrade slots that are down here. That's a lot of dice to be rolling at one time. It is a bit of a dice chucker allocation. It has a little bit of everything. If you were to ask me what this game is, it is Yes, it's a dice chucker. Yes, it's a dice allocation system, and a mitigation system. It's also a choose your own adventure system. It's also a campaign game, but it can be played as a one-off. There are hidden elements in here. There's quite a bit to it, but I got to tell you that once you get rolling on this, it's pretty dead simple to play. So I roll the dice. First thing I like to do is check the initiative die. I rolled a 1, so I check that against my piloting. I have a 2 piloting. I need to roll a 1 or a 2. You have to roll your piloting or under in order to win initiative. So I rolled a 1, so I win initiative for this round. And the next thing I will do is take the enemy dice and rank them from highest to lowest. The highest goes in the bottom left-hand corner, for the 5 goes here, and then they rolled 2 1s. Not that great for the enemy, first round. I rolled a 2. That 2 blue has to go on my blue. I can choose to put the yellow dice where I want them, on one side or the other. I rolled a 3 and a 1. The 1 for both of these is no attack, so it doesn't really matter. So I really am looking at the 3. And in this case, I am going to put the 3 on this side and the 1 on this side, because this one does some damage and this one just keeps me from receiving damage next round. I won the initiative. I didn't decide to buy any Tides cards, so I'm skipping that for right now. So I will do damage first. My 2 on my center torso, I can finish these off in any order that I wish to do so. So I'm actually going to start with the yellow, and I usually remove them from the board after I've spent them. So my yellow is short-range missiles, SRM. 1 damage or 2 if my gunnery is greater than 2. It's not, so I'm going to do 1 damage with this one. And I'm going to take this wasp down to 1 damage over here. This one is no attack. However, the center torso for my mech, I have a center torso and I have 2 sides. This is an autocannon side. This is an LRM side and SRM side. So you've got a little bit of both on. It depends on how you decide to arm out your mech, and that's what's cool about this game is as I roll on, these are the no-cost parts that I will always start with if I haven't upgraded them. But in my campaign, for example, I've already upgraded my torso to a much stronger center torso that has greater health, and it doesn't have some of the negatives that this one has in it. And it cost me a lot to get it, but it's well worth the cost. So I rolled a 2, and that says expert piloting, adjust any die up or down 1. So I can adjust this one, but if I were to adjust this one up, I can't adjust it down at all. Up would only heal him a point, so that's no good, so I'm not going to bother doing that one. I don't want to accumulate heat on my mech, and that's what the 3rd space on this one does. So instead, I'm going to dial this one down to a 1, and the 1 for him is his machine guns, and it's 1 damage to any enemy in the front row. So I'm going to take that damage to the wasp and take him right out of there. That eliminates his, we're not simultaneously attacking, so it eliminates his attack and his attack die. What it does, however, do is it leaves a space in this front row, so automatically this back mech will flip, or that back unit will flip, and it is a stinger, and it has 2 health. It doesn't, whoops, 2 health. Let's try the right die here. It does not attack this round, but it will, however, get a die for next round. So it has just moved into view, if you will. That one does nothing. This one just fired. That is everything that I have. Now it goes on to the enemy. 1, he's reloading, so there's no attack there from the Griffin. And 1, they're digging in, and swap this infantry card with the leftmost card in the front row. This is the leftmost card. The infantry wants to be right up front. They're sending them in first. So there's a simple swap right there, and that is his attack. That now puts the infantry in a more dangerous position. All right, I'm going to reload my cup. I still have 3 enemy dice to roll, so I have those in there as well as mine. I move it down. That's all of round 1. I move it down to round 2, and in round 2, it is a resource round. It is a piloting round, so I'm going to collect resources for my piloting skill. So I'm going to collect 2 blue cubes again and put them in the resource area. I now have 5 cubes, and I could hold on to these and try to exchange these at the end of the scenario for some permanent gold cubes, because these get lost at the end of every scenario, but the gold stays with you, and as you saw, can be spent to upgrade your mech if it calls for it. But I am going to turn these in. This is one of the things that you can do with your cubes. I'm going to turn in 2 of those to pull up 2 Tides of War cards, And the Tides of War cards, I got the Gambler and Picking on the Big Guy. The first card says bet up to 3 cubes of any color, so I could bet all 3 of these cubes if I wanted to. And this is simply a gambling card to try to increase the number of cubes that I have. The other one is Picking on the Big Guy, and I can hold and use as needed, which means I can hold up to 4 Tides cards in my hand. So I could hold on to this one and use it whenever I needed to. It says adjust the center torso die up or down 1 number after each roll, but any damage must target a red or a purple enemy. Discard at the end of the scenario. I'm going to hold on to this just in case I happen to pull in a recruit that's a red enemy, and I'm going to let this one go to discard. So no negative effects on that one. I didn't accumulate. Probably would have been better off just holding on to my blue cubes at that point, but I wanted to show you how a Tides card worked. So I will hold on to that one. On to round 2. Roll the dice. I definitely did not win initiative. Doesn't matter what your piloting is. A 1 is always a win, and a 6 is always a loss. And I rolled a 6, so that's a loss. So obviously my 3 is going to go on my 3s, and I have a 3 and a 4 for my sides. And it looks like I'm going to put the 4 over on this side and the 3 on that side so I can maximize my damage. I'm going to put the dice in order from high to low for the enemy. The enemy gets to go first on this round, so they're going to fire. The heavy infantry fires and hits for 1 damage. As I said before, it always goes from the outside in, and it goes from, if it doesn't declare where it goes, it always goes to the strongest side first. So speaking of health, I have 2 dice on here. When I remove health from this, I always remove from the top to the bottom, and I can never, if I take damage, I can never span 1 die to another. So if I were to have only 1 health point here, and it did 2 damage to me, it would take that one out, but it would leave this one on. So it's kind of my emergency health point. I had 3 on here to begin with. It did 1 damage to me. It takes me down to 2. So I have 3 left on that side. The Griffin, it misses, so there's no attack there. And then the Stinger, also no attack there. You get a little bit of that when you are in the weaker cards. If they roll 1s or low, they will often not hit you. Unfortunately, you can do these in any order you want to, and this is not good for me, so I'm going to hold on to that blue and do that last, and instead do the damage first. My machine guns do 1 damage again. In this case, I'm going to take out the 1 from the heavy infantry. And this 3 is my SRM. It's going to do 1 damage as well. So I will destroy that infantry and take him out of commission. There's nobody to slide down, so that section is just going to remain open. Now the bad thing that I rolled was a 3, and that is heat. As you know, in Battletech, there's often a problem with heat in the game, so we have that in here. And these little bars denote heat. I have to roll a die and add it to a random spot on the weakest side. Even though these are tied at 3 points apiece, there's 3 here and 3 here. The 3 is split among 2 dice on here, and because it's split, that makes that the stronger side, because you can't take all 3 of those out at once, where you could take this one all out at once. So this is the weaker side. So I roll a die, and in this case, I rolled the one thing I didn't want to roll, and that is a 6, and I have overheated that spot right there. And now if I roll a 6, I can't use that spot or that slot. So that little section is overheated. What did I overheat? My autocannon that does 4 damage, and it's the best weapon that I have, and I just overheated it. Alright, so that would be the end of round 2. And you can see, if you know what you're doing and you're not explaining this, how quickly this can go. Some of these have different factors. There are a lot of different things that can happen within the battlefield itself, and there are a lot of different round modifiers that can be used to change up what happens each round, and I often use that. But in this case, for the first one, you don't change anything up. So in round 3, that's a gunnery round. I'm going to pull my 1 gunnery resource cube, and I've got 2 of each over here just sitting there. And as far as I'm concerned, they can sit there for right now. Roll my dice for round 3. I lost initiative again. The enemy rolled a 5. Let's try that again. I only rolled 2 dice for the enemy. Oh, that didn't help me out a whole lot. A couple of 4s right there. My 3 is going to go on my 3 again. That's not really what I want. Now I would normally have put this 6 over on here and done 4 damage, but since I can't, I'm going to end up putting it over on the other side because I don't want to waste it, and then I'll put the 5 on this side. Still pretty good rolls as far as that's concerned, but the 6 would have been awesome. So 4 for the Griffin, It's too close. The Griffin doesn't want to attack from that range. Swap this mech with the one behind it and no attack. So it doesn't attack, but what it does do is it swaps place with the Scorpion tank and brings that into view. So now the tank is in the near part of the battlefield. While it doesn't roll for, I keep doing that wrong, while it doesn't roll for attack this round, it is going to be eligible for damage, and it will roll for an attack next round, if it's still there. The Stinger rolls a 4, and that is its laser, the Omicron 3000, 1 damage, and that damage will go to this side again, as it was still the strongest side, and that goes up there. I'm going to do my yellows first again because I'm going to be rolling for heat. So my LRM is going to do 2 damage, and I can do it to either row, and in this case I'm actually going to do that 2 damage to the back row, and it states that I can hit either row from there. As long as it is up and facing you, if the enemy is not still in a cloud or in the fog of war, if it is there, I can target it. So if it's there and I'm allowed to hit either row, which I was, I can do the damage to it. The other side, the 5, is machine guns, and that does 1 damage, and I'm just going to take that one. I can only do that to the front row anyway, so I'm going to take that one off of the Scorpion tank. And then finally, unfortunately, I have to roll for heat again. This time it's going to be on the weakest side, and the weakest side is now this side because it's down to 2 points, and that one is going to take it. Oh man, I'm not doing that great. I'm overheated now on both 6s, and my 6s are, generally speaking, my best dice. So going into the next round, I'm going to reload everything. 3 dice again. Now, even though you are still going to roll a die for the second row, even though most of the time, even if it says it does damage up here, unless it says from either row, a enemy mech cannot damage you from the second row. But you still roll a die for it, and the reason you do that is it increases the ratio of higher numbers that you could possibly roll for your enemy. So my chances of rolling 6s and 5s are much better if having 3 dice in there than they are 2. We are on to round 4, and round 4 is it's a brown round, and the brown rounds are the Tides of War cards. Same thing, like I can do any single round I can draw Tides of War cards. I just haven't been, except for the one. But on the brown colored rounds, you are forced to buy one or buy them if you can. Even if you can't afford it, you still must draw one regardless. I don't want to take a chance on drawing a bad one, so I am going to take both. I'm going to take one of each cube, but I'm going to draw 2 since it's forcing me to draw them anyway, and take the one that I like best. The first one is Reconnaissance. Resolve at the beginning of next round. Roll 1 extra die for the enemy. Don't really want to do that. Keep the highest dice rolled. This is one of the ones where I can mitigate this with my resources, but I don't have 2 blues, so I couldn't really mitigate that at all. And the other one says Loss of Consciousness. Neither one of these are good. Resolve immediately. Advance the round tracker 1 space. Don't resolve any new round effects, cubes, or reinforcements. Actually, that works really well for me. Apparently, they're the ones who lost consciousness because the next round is a reinforcement round, the green one. So I need to advance to this green round. Normally, when I go to that round, I would be forced to draw a reinforcement card for the enemy. However, because of the loss of consciousness, it says not to draw or resolve any round effects. So I move to round 5, which would be bad in terms of when I get to 28, if I haven't won the battle by then, that's an automatic loss. So it does push me forward really quickly. But in this case, I'm fine with it because that would be a round where I'd have to pull up a resource and reinforcement, and I don't really want to do that. So I have all my dice in here, and we've skipped ahead to round 5. We'll roll for this round. Once again, lost initiative, and at least I'm not rolling for heat this time. So I've got a 4 that goes on my blues, and I've got a yellow 5 and 3. My 3 is going to be damage, and I want to maximize my damage right now. Actually, I'm going to do this instead. We put the 5 here and the 3 here, and they roll a 3, 2, and a 1. So the 3 goes here, the 2 goes here, and the 1 goes to the back row. I lost initiative, so that they will go first. The Scorpion tank on a 3 is a miss, so no damage there. The Stinger on a 2 is redeploy. Swap this mech with the mech to the right if possible. There's nothing over on its right-hand side. It's on the edge of the battlefield, so it does nothing. And then the Griffin in the back row simply says no attack, so he does nothing. So all in all, pretty good round for me, even though I lost initiative. The 4 on here is a repair. I'm able to repair my mech +1 of the Atlas's center torso, side, or upgrade. So I could put +1 health up to my maximum on anything that I have still showing it. Once it's destroyed, you can't increase its health or bring it back unless a card, usually the Tides of War cards are the ones that allow you to do that. But you can't increase health on anything that's been destroyed. You can only rewire and increase the health on something that you still have showing. So I only had one die pip showing here, so I'm going to increase that to 2 over on my side so I could take a little bit more damage there. The 5 is an LRM, that's 2 damage, and it's only to the front row, so I'm going to take out the Stinger over on this side, which reveals the Wolverine, and that guy is a little more deadly. There's a 2 there and a 3 there, so 5 health in total, but he's a yellow, so he's a little bit stronger. So while I did take one out, I revealed another one. And then the heavy armor, the 3 on this side, says choose a side to take no damage next round. And in this case, I am going to choose this side not to take damage next round, which sometimes it's really important. If I had stayed down to a 1 and a 1, or if I had increased this back to a 3 and a 1, I could have put that there, and on any regular damage, which would normally go to my strongest side, if it doesn't take damage, there's no effect, and I wouldn't have taken it. But in this case, we're even out. This is still the strongest side, though. So I'm going to put it on there, and hopefully that keeps me from getting damage next round. So we are up to round 6. Round 6 is a split resource round, and when you split it, you divide your resources by 2 and round up. In this case, dividing 1 by or dividing it in half would be 0.5, rounding it up to 1, so I get 1 gunnery cube. And then my piloting is 2, and dividing that in half, I get 1 piloting cube as well. So I'm up to 4 resource cubes again. So all in all, doing okay. And I haven't lost a side yet, so that's okay as well. 3 dice. I'm on round 6. I've got 3 dice to roll still for the enemy. I did get initiative this time, which is nice. I didn't roll much different than I did last round. I've got a 1, a 5, and a 3 again. So I'm going to kind of do I'm going to go the opposite. And I'm going to do the same thing again. Yes, same thing again. They rolled really well, 6, 6, and a 2. So I get to go first. I'm obviously going to try to take that 6 out. So I am going to do that with the 1 from my Atlas is machine guns, damage to any front row enemy. So I will take out the Scorpion tank before he has a chance to fire at me. That slides the Griffin down into row number 1. I am going to do the 2 damage from my Wolverine. Now I could do it over here, or I could do it over here. Over here I would only, just like my dice don't cross over from die to die, my weapons don't cross over when I'm damaging either. So I'm doing 2 damage. I could take that 1 die out and stop, or I can take this down to 1 pip, and it's a little more beneficial for me to hit that Wolverine. So that's out, that's the yellow side out. The heavy armor, again, I could choose one side to take no damage next round. I will again choose that side of the Atlas, so I'm just going to leave that die there. That just lets me know that it's not going to take damage. The Griffin, 2, it does punch 1 damage and 1 damage to the Griffin if its health is greater than 2. And its health is greater than 2. So I would take 1 damage, and it's going to take 1 damage. So there's its 1 damage. However, when it just damages me and it doesn't say which side, it goes to my strongest side, which happens to be the side that can't take damage this round. So I won't take damage from his punch. He pretty much hit my armor and hurt his hand. The Wolverine 2 is death from above. 2 damage to your mech and 1 to this unit. So these guys are in kamikaze mode right now. But he does 2 damage to mine and 1 to his. There's the 1 to his. However, still, he can't damage my strongest side, so I don't take damage on this one. You can see how that becomes beneficial. The next round is simply a gray round, so I don't have to do any modifiers. So I just load up my dice again, and we're off to battle one more time. I won initiative once again. They rolled a 5 and a 3. And I rolled, this would have been nice getting that 6. This 6 is now useless. And here comes more heat. But I do have a 3 that I can use, so I'll put the 6 over on that side. I won initiative, so this 6 does nothing. I'm trying to get my autocannon to fire, and it just won't do it. It is out of commission for right now. It's way overheated, so that doesn't work.
On the other hot side, however, my short-range missiles, I've got 1 damage coming from that, and I'm going to take that Wolverine down to 1 and use that one. And then unfortunately, I have developed heat once again. This would be my weakest side on this side again, and in this case, it is overheating on the 2 side. So building up some heat over on that guy. Their damage, the 5 is an LRM. 1 damage from either row may eliminate it by paying any. The gray cubes or the clear cubes on there mean any color, and I can eliminate taking that damage by paying any colored cube, which I'm going to do. I will pay 1 of my blue cubes and avoid that damage. Again, you can see how you can kind of mitigate things. There is a benefit to saving these cubes, so if you're just spending them like crazy, you'll never build up the gold cubes, and you'll never, while you'll survive some of the early rounds, if you don't ever increase the capabilities of your mech, you're going to get slaughtered in the middle of the late rounds. So it's kind of a decision-making time for that. But for the first round and showing you how I'm going to play this, I'm just going to spend the cube. The 3 on this one is an EMP. I'm going to roll a D6. On a roll of 4 to 6, I'm going to add a weapons offline, and of course I rolled a 4. And in the first row, oh, I'm sorry, to the center torso. So a weapon offline. So I have another problem with my mech. It has simply gone offline. As I was saying, the weapon offline is going to go on the center torso, and it's going to go in the 5 slot, and spin that around so I can read it. But now that slot is no good anymore. That's not good for me. But that was the end of their turn, and we are up to round 8. Round 8 is a reinforcement round, which means I am going to pull a reinforcement card. And the card says, add up to 2 green enemies from the supply to the first open slots on the battlefield. And so just when you think that the battle's almost done, here comes some reinforcements. This is the first open slot right here, and it's a Shylone. It's an aircraft. And then the second slot, which is in behind it, that is light infantry. Or I'm sorry, light artillery. And the light artillery can attack from either row. The Shylone, this is actually a booster card. After my friends have played this a few times, I created a booster pack for it, and that would be this little guy right here, but I've already emptied my booster pack into my main deck, and which you can't probably see, but there's a little number up here which denotes that it is an expansion or a booster pack. And in the booster pack, I introduced the idea of 3 health slots, and which is the most I have on anything right now for the most part. But 3 health spots for an enemy. That now means I am rolling 4 attack dice for the enemy. So those all get dumped in. My 3 dice go in the initiative die. They're still just green enemies, so not the strongest people in the world. And there goes one right off the tray, so let's try that again. All right, so they rolled 3 4s and a 2, 4 4, 4 2. I rolled a 6, which is no good, a 5, which I'm putting over here. I did win initiative, and once again I rolled heat. That's awesome. So I won initiative. That 6 is no good. I'm going to do the 5, and that is 2 points of damage. And I could choose to take this one down to 1, but this one only has 1 left, and I'm going to take damage from this guy if I don't destroy him. So I am going to target that Wolverine and take him out of commission, and that will eliminate him firing back at me. And then finally, once again, I rolled heat. My weakest side is this side again. I rolled a 2, and I already have heat on the second slot. So fortunately for me, no more heat. You don't double up on it. It just remains, and you don't re-roll it. If it's out of commission, it's already out of commission. So I'm building up heat. And if you're wondering, is there a way to get rid of the heat? Yes, there is. You can do it through the Tides of War cards. Also, my Atlas's center torso, if I were to roll a 6, I could spend some of my resource cubes, and I could remove a bar of heat if I wanted to. That's what a 6 does on there. All right, that's my attack. This little guy is now gone, so I can take damage over here again, which I believe I'm going to do. 1 damage if in the second row only, so the Shylone is better at attacking from distance, so he misses. 4 on the Griffin, too close. Swap this mech with the 1 behind it. So normally it would swap with this behind it, but since there's nothing there, it just simply stays, because if I were to put it here, it would just simply slide back into this spot anyway. so it stays there. And the light artillery on a 2, it's an EMP pulse. Once again, random right side goes weapon offline. There's my right side. I roll a 1, which is about the best thing I could roll for this because that's a weapon jam anyway, no attack, so I don't mind if that goes offline. So that one is now gone. Load those back up. I am in a resource round again. Number 9 is a resource round, and that is 1 cube for my piloting, or I'm sorry, my gunnery. We roll again, and I rolled a 2, a 4, and a 1. I'm going to put that 1 over here because it's no good anyway. And then the 4 will go on that side. I lost initiative, and they rolled a 6 and 2 4s. That's not good. They're going first anyway, so the 6 is 1 damage to the center torso from the Shylone, so it did manage to hit me. Knocks me down to 9, so I'm in pretty good shape still there. And then the Griffin, 4 too close, it wants to swap again. Still looking for a buddy, can't find him. And then the 4 over on this side, repair that 1 health point, so your enemies can actually gain health back as well, but in this case it's already at full health, so it doesn't really matter. My 2 is expert piloting. I can adjust any die up or down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to adjust this die to a 2, and that creates this one. That changes it from a 1 to a 2, and this one, his 2 is expert piloting and allows him to go any die up or adjust 1 die up or down 1 pip. I'm going to adjust that same die again to a 3, and there's your dice mitigation, if you will. Now I'm at SRM 1 damage. So my SRM is going to hit for 1 damage. I'm going to take that Shylone down 1. And then on the other side, my machine guns are going to do 1 damage. I'm going to take the Shylone down 1 again. And that takes me up to round 10, which is a resource round. I am going to gamble. I have 4 cubes left. I'm kind of trying to save these 3 for changing it in for a gold cube at the end. So I'm going to spend just the 1. It forces me to spend at least 1 if I have it, and draw at least 1 card, which is what I'm going to do, and hopefully it's not bad. Weather, thick fog, not good. Leave revealed and used throughout the scenario, so fog is now developed. Any card or action using a red cube costs an additional cube. If this card's in play, any other weather effects drawn or ignored, discard at the end of the scenario. I'm just going to place this one off to the side. Weather cards don't count as part of the 4 in my hand, so this is just simply an effect that's an ongoing effect for the rest of the scenario. Not great, but not terrible. All right, once again I win initiative, but they rolled 3 5s. That can't be good for me either. So they're going to hit big time. Here's a 6 that I would have loved to have used. Here's a 2 on that side, which is where I'm going to put it, and then a 5, which is weapon offline. So I'm first. That weapon offline, I'm actually going to use this 2, which is adjust a die up or down 1 pip. I'm going to adjust this up to a 6, and I didn't want to do this, but I can remove any weapon offline. So I'm going to take that bar off for 2 cubes of any color. And in this case, oh, wait a minute, that would cost me an additional cube. So I'm going to use that one for 1, and then this would be my other ones, but it's going to cost me an additional 1 because of the stupid fog. So there's all my cubes, but I did free up my 4 damage autocannon again, so it is cooled down and ready to go. Which actually, since I did this one first, which led me to this one, I can do these in any order. Since I removed that, and my 6 was the die I placed on this side, I can now use my autocannon. So that 6 is going to give me a 4 damage autocannon. I'm going to blow this Griffin out of the water. And there he goes. Goodbye to his die. And that is my round. Turned out to be a pretty good round. Their turn. 5. Medium laser, 1 damage. This is still my strongest side, so that takes me down to 1 and 1. So they did some damage there. And on this side, the light artillery, they can fire from either row, remember, and they did. Direct hit, 1 damage. This is now my strongest side because it's 2 and 3. So it goes to this side. It takes me down to 2 there. Next round, round 11, is a piloting round. So I'm going to pull my piloting resources, and I take 2 of those. I'm going to hold on to those if I can. Get all my dice back together. 2 dice for the enemy, 3 for myself, and my initiative die. Roll those. I lost initiative, and they rolled a 6 and a 3, so one nice roll and one okay roll. And I rolled a stupid heat again, and then a 5 and a 2. So the 2's going to go here, and the 5's going to go here. They're going to go first. So a 6 is 1 damage to the center torso, taking me down to 8 my center torso. I don't mind taking damage right now for that because it's the strongest part I have. If, however, your center torso goes out, it's game over. Your arms, your sides, your arms are not going to work without the center torso, basically without you inside the mech. And then in the back row, 3 is no impact, no attack, so nothing from the light artillery. It is my side. I'm definitely going to do the heat last. I'm going to use my expert piloting to adjust a die up or down 1 pip to take this 5 to a 6. So that becomes a 6 for the, oh, and I really don't need to do that. Well, it doesn't matter. But that would be 4 points of damage, so I am taking 4 points to the Shylone, and I am just blowing that to Kingdom Come because he only had 1 left. That slides the light artillery down to the front, and once again I have heat on my weakest side, which in this case I'm down to 2 and 2. That becomes my weakest side, and I overheated my 1 space, which is awesome because I don't really care about the 1 space. It doesn't attack anyway. So if you're going to take heat, that's a good place to take it. No attack die there. And we're on to round 12, which is no modifier. So we'll roll for round 12. Enemy rolled a 6. They won initiative once again. I did, however, roll a 6, which is nice, and then a 3, that's awesome, and a 2 for my Atlas. So they get to go first. A 6 is critical damage to the center torso. Once again, they've got me down to 7 in there. So he is pounding away at me. He's hitting me dead center. But I can still take the damage there. I'd rather take it there right now. That's it for them. For me, this is going to do it for them because my SRM is going to do 1 damage. That's going to take that out. And then my autocannon is going to do 4 damage. And that is going to take the other point out. And in this case, when you clear the battlefield, that was the objective. When you've cleared all the enemies out, you have won the battle. And this says, if you win, the mech warrior thanks you for fighting on his behalf. His mech is nearly useless, but he offers to help you repair your unit with anything that might help, that he has that might help. You consider the offer. Saying no means, or saying yes, staying means time. Time that you don't necessarily have because we're working to get off this moon if we can. Does this warrior have an ulterior motive? Truss is pretty tough to come by, and he seems to be on foot now because his locust lost the actuator. Then again, you might be too if you don't make some repairs. So first thing I'm going to do is it tells me to collect a gold cube. So I will take that, and then I'm going to choose, I can take them up on the offer and read entry 8, or I can decline the help and get moving and read entry 1. And that's where I would go into this book, and I would read entry 8 or entry 1 and do what it tells me to do there. Most of the time, when you go into the next scenario, there's only 1 or 2 scenarios that will tell you to hold on to all the stuff that you have, including sometimes your heat and weapon offline bars. But most of the time, you will clear these mechs out. You'll go back into the next battle with a fresh mech, so your hit points will go back up to 3 and 1 on that side. This one would go back up to 3 from the 2 that it was at, and then my 7 would go back up to a 10 on my center torso. I will keep that gold cube for the next round. However, I will lose these cubes. If I had 3, if I had 1 more, I'd be able to turn those things in for another gold cube, which again I can use. I can use them anytime in place of a blue or a yellow or a blue or a red cube. So if I needed to, however, clear some a bar, weapon offline bar, or an overheated bar, I could use that gold if I wanted to. Probably not the wisest thing to do, but you could. It substitutes as a clear if you want to use it. But more than likely, I would want to use it to buy one of these upgrades that are available for my mech. And there's a lot of them in there, and some of them are cheap, some of them are expensive, but there's a bunch in there you can buy. So I will hold on to that gold. These 2, since I only have 2 and not 3, I'm simply going to lose. And that is the end of this scenario. That would lead me into a few decisions that I would have to make, and that would lead me into the next scenario. Throughout the campaign, I will eventually be able to put things down like here's a partisan army that would join in the red upgrade slot, which is below. In the green upgrade slot, I might throw things in like the armor. And over on the other side, this is a fusion reactor, the General Motors reactor that I can throw in on that side. Both of them have hit points as well. You can see this is weak armor, takes 2 damage, but it only costs 1 gold cube. And there's 3 gold cubes for this one, but it also comes with 4 armor as well as an ability to do some rerolls. So those are upgrades that you can get as you work your way through. Other than that, that is an example of the first scenario. Hope you enjoyed it. There's a lot of variations on this, and I'll probably play out something else as I go down the road and show you what a more advanced scenario looks like. Thanks a lot.